Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Ben Scott from Ben Scott Garden Design. Ben's one of my favourite designers, so I was very excited to talk to him and I just love the work that he does. And it's fascinating just to hear not only how he started in the industry, working for Julian McCarthy Landscapes and working on Paul Bangay's gardens in Wood End, but also then working for Paul Bangay after that and helping draw stone fields when he first designed that. So it would be fascinating to have seen what that was like from paddocks to what it is today. And also just the fact that it's only Ben and one other person, one other landscape architect in the business. So they do some amazing designs. So you just assume that they're a bigger company, but that was a good example of how you don't need to be massive to be successful. It was good hearing how he doesn't use 3D designs, but he does use Photoshop to help with the elevations. And I've seen some of them, and they do look very impressive. So again, it's another way of presenting the design. Doesn't change what the actual design looks like when it's built, but it gives the client a greater representation of what it might look like and gets them more excited in the presentation. And it was great to hear him talk about how the communication he has with maintenance folks who look after the gardens that he designs. So he uses Abcam horticulture a fair bit, and just talking with them about the way he wants things to be done and answering their questions as they come up is an important part of getting the gardens to look as good as they can. Plenty of great learnings in this chat with Ben, so hopefully you enjoy this chat with Ben Scott. Ben, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Thanks for having me, Joel. Yeah, so I started in the industry back in the mid-90s. So after finishing high school, went and did a degree in horticulture at Burnley. So I finished that in 97, it was, and then did a bit of travelling, as you do. So went to Europe, did a bit of travelling over there, saw gardens over there, got a bit of inspiration. Then I came back in end of 98, I think it was, started 99. And what am I going to do? And then literally saw a magazine article at the time, local magazine. There's an article about Julian McCarthy, who's a landscape contractor, and the gardens he was working on with Paul Bangay at the time. And I thought, I'm going to contact Julian and see if I can get in. So it was, literally called him up and started a couple of days later. Total labouring job. So I was on the tools, did that job for probably a year or something. So really learnt a lot. And during that process, we were actually working on Paul's country garden up in Wood End at the time. So Julian was finishing off the build of that, which was fantastic. So met Paul on that job, and all I wanted to do was design. So at Burnley, very much the subjects were around landscape design, graphics, all of that. So I started doing a bit of, at the time we were hand drafting at the time on the big boards, and started doing a little bit of that for Julian as well. But then when I met Paul, he said, look, all I want to do is design. And Paul said, look, he had his office in Paran at the time. And he said to me, look, we sometimes have occasional, too much work. Would you like to do some drafting at the time? And so, just started doing a little bit of that for him on the side, still continued working for Julian. And then that kind of built up to a point where Paul actually went to America for a little while. He was going to move over there permanently. That didn't sort of work out. Closed his office. He came back and then he contacted me and said, can I get you to do some more drafting for me? And that's that was around 2000. That was the process where we sort of change over from hand drawing to CAD. So during that time, I'd sort of done a short course in it. And so then we started doing that for Paul. I would be working. I would just do that from home. He'd send over the plans. I'd draft them all up for him, and then we'd sort of emailing back and forward. Still doing a bit of work for Julian on the side, and then started doing my own work also. So I was really just doing bits and pieces here and there. And then I decided to do some postgrad landscape architecture. So did that at Melbourne Uni, and that sort of honed up a bit on my sort of design skills there. And then Paul just said to me, "Oh, let's I really want to get an office again." So we got an office, and I think it would have been about 4 or 5 years. worked with Paul for about 4 days a week, drawing up all his designs. So it was just me, and we had Angela who did the plants, and someone else who looked after all the administrative stuff, bookkeeper, that. So I was doing sort of 4 days a week, drawing all that. So that was invaluable sort of period, I guess. Just learned so much off Paul and everything he did at the time, plants, how to design, how to deal with clients, things like that. So, and that was actually the period when he bought Stonefields. So that was just a bare paddock at the time. And that was, part of my job was drawing that up for him too. So it was pretty exciting at the time. And then watching that as that sort of developed. And then it was about 2010, around that kind of period. So I worked for Paul for, quite a few years. And my own work sort of got to the point where I had about, I think it was around 7 kind of projects of my own sort of just doing on the side. They range from small little jobs to sort of medium-sized kind of jobs. And it just got to the point where, I decided it was time to move on, do my own thing. I think my passion was more in contemporary design, and so I really wanted to go down that path. So just decided, gave Paul notice and moved on. And then that's when sort of started Ben Scott Garden Design as it is sort of today, and gradually built it up over that sort of the last sort of 13, 14 years to where it is today.
So how were you getting those jobs that, like, for yourself while you're working there? Like, where were they coming from?
I think a lot of it, it does come from sort of family and friends, and just people hear of you, and so I think mainly through that. I think I might have had a bit of a website on the side that I was doing, but I don't think I really got fed much from then. We didn't have Instagram back in those days. So I think it was very much just from those networking kind of contacts, and then just built up, and then I think it was about sort of progressing and really trying to make those close relationships with architects, builders, developers, that sort of thing. So then that's where it sort of progressed, and as you know, you really need to have that good sort of portfolio of work to get in the door with a lot of these people. You've got to have that basis. So it just takes time to sort of build it up, and that was the hard part from starting out.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good foot in the door to have those. Like, when you are contacting those architects and builders, saying that you've been working for Paul Bangay, drawing his designs. So it's better than saying you've been working for someone no one's ever heard of.
Definitely, no, absolutely helped. I have no doubt at all. But but then I had the challenge of work with Paul. Everything's obviously very symmetrical, and you have that strong axis line, and things get mirrored at either side, and designing like that to more contemporary design, as can be anywhere from free flowing organic to being a bit more structured, still being structured but pared back. So it's taking that step, and it did take a while to train the brain and into that other kind of style, really, and obviously immersing myself, visiting gardens, things like that, to really learn what other people were doing.
So when you went, and after school you went and studied horticulture, is that something you knew you'd like before then, or was that just luck that you got into that and turned out to love it?
Look, it was actually something, I think I would have been about 12 or 13, and I remember my mum at the time was, I was very much, always had a veggie garden, that sort of thing, and into gardening at some kind of level, whether it was just, weeding the garden or planting a few plants here and there. But definitely into the vegetable garden. I think my mum at the time, she sort of said, you should have a think about, potentially doing horticulture. And we went down to the Burnley, one of the days they had there on the weekends, the open days. And at the time, I think Kevin Hines was there. That's going back a long way. This would have been, I imagine it would have been about 20, like that. And just couldn't believe what an amazing place Burnley was, just walking through these incredible century-old gardens with century-old trees and everything, and just thought this is pretty good. I think I'd always wanted to do something outdoors. And then, so at a very early age, I knew about Burnley, and I think it was just a given. I just had in my mind, that's what I'm going to do, and just sort of put it down. And I actually didn't even get the right score to get into it originally in year 12. I missed out just and got into the diploma. And I remember calling up. I called up the guy at Burnley, and I just, who was the organizer, and said, look, didn't quite get the mark. I really want to do the degree. Can you do anything? And he said, oh, okay, that's great, man. I love your passion and everything. And he looked into it, and then suddenly I was into it. So I got into it.
Yeah, awesome.
So, it's amazing what a phone call can do.
Yeah, and it's also awesome that you actually knew what you wanted to do, because I've spoken to a lot of people who, like, if they finish school and they go traveling, and they're in Europe or in England, and then they didn't realize that they wanted to do anything within horticulture, so they didn't see all these gardens that you would have seen because you already had that passion there. So it's good that you actually knew, so then you could appreciate those things while you're over there as well.
Definitely. Although when I look back, there probably wasn't enough of that.
Yeah.
I think it was very young and sort of partying and doing that, and I guess didn't quite have the money to go and visit a lot of those gardens at the time too, because as you do need the car to visit a lot of these gardens over there. So I certainly saw a few, but I think over the last 15 years, certainly a bit of travel during that time of being able to see a little bit more, but still I feel like there's a lot to see.
Absolutely, yeah. And you said you did a course for it, but how challenging was it going, like learning CAD after you've been doing hand drawing for all that time?
Yeah, it was. It was challenging straight up, but I just saw the benefits of it. It just, hand drawing, it was just, so labor intensive, and, when you wanted to make changes and that, the good old scratching out on the trace paper and that. I just saw the benefits in it. So it was hard at the start, but as soon as you got your head around that, and then it just built and built. I mean, if I look back at some of my earlier kind of CAD work, I'd probably go, oh my God, to what it is today. But certainly, it was incredibly beneficial, to the, design industry, I guess. So definitely, that made sense to go down that path.
And what programs do you use now for your designs? I imagine there'd be quite a few.
Not too much actually. So we use AutoCAD religiously. So I've been using that for over 20 years now. So we use that for all our design work. So when I start out a job, we'll obviously get it up to a sort of base plan type level, and then very much it's about old school sketching out from there. So I'll go away and work on and get it spatially working, and once I've nailed it spatially, then we'll start throwing it onto CAD and start seeing how it's looking, print it out, a bit more sort of sketching over. So there's still the hand drawing side of it, but we're using CAD as part of that process, and then we'll document it up to a fairly good sort of concept level. From there we go into Photoshop, and then it'll get all photoshopped up from there, including doing some lovely Photoshop elevations as well. We feel they sort of bring the design really to life using photorealistic plant images as part of it. So it really gives a good feel for the overall kind of composition. We did look at 3D work here and there, but I think just being so labor intensive, etc., and I think just the general look and feel. I think a lot of the 3D work does look all sort of the same and everything like that. And I think the other thing too is I think if you can, what we were doing was working with clients. So really, having some lovely elevations and a plan and a package that really walked them through the look and the feel, the hardscape kind of materials, all of that. That was enough to kind of sell it to clients, and we found that the whole way through. So I think fortunately we don't have to do that 3D work, because clients are getting a good feel for how the project is going to look. But I totally understand, why other people do it. Yeah, it's certainly something I'm not trained on. So maybe it's again one of those things, probably my age showing. So yeah.
Yeah, I've seen one of your designs come across my desk, and those 3D, not the 3D, the Photoshop elevations they give you a good enough indication of how it's going to look anyway. So it's almost like a difference in between 2D and 3D, and they have that good presentation, and that can be like not everyone can visualize things like the clients, so that can be all I need just to see a little bit of the elevation, and then the rest of it can all make sense. And then it's not as much work going into that as what it would be to make it 3D. So it makes sense doing it that way.
Yeah, yeah, and as you know, on some jobs too, with 3D, the architect hasn't done the house in 3D. It makes a huge amount of work on top of it. But look, I mean, everyone's different. Everyone has their own system, and yeah, we just sort of found it works for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that something you just sort of started doing yourself? Like that wasn't something that Paul did beforehand that you sort of carried on?
Yeah, no. So that's actually something that happened. Yeah, within my business. So I'm really small, Joel. So it's just myself, and I have another landscape architect who works for me. So I like to keep it really, really tight, just so I'm across everything. And I have a young family and that too. So like to huge amount of sort of time input for them too. So I didn't want to go to the side of having the big office and a number of employees. I just like keeping it nice and tight, just so I'm across everything. I'm continually doing a lot of documentation and everything, and as you know, you really have to make sure everything's to code, and there's a lot of regulation stuff that you have to make sure all the documentation applies with. So yeah, I like to keep it tight and just look for that to make sure the design's good and all those regulation type stuff too. But in terms of the Photoshop stuff, that actually came from a Candace who used to work for me. She's now moved on. She's now works for Open Work, does amazing public space, mainly public space stuff in the city, which is great. Candace was fantastic, worked for me for a couple of years and brought that into my business. So yeah, a lot of it was mainly sort of CAD based, and she brought the Photoshop work, and yeah, so that's the kind of model that we've continued on, which Stephen who works for me does for me now. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I've had the same thing. I employed a landscape architect at the start of the year, and I had no idea people use Photoshop as much as what they do, because I wanted our presentation of the designs to look a lot better than what I was doing just with the Landworks CAD. It was looking a bit a bit of color in there, but I saw other people's designs looking a lot better, so I wanted ours to be better as well. And yeah, she uses Photoshop for that. But the problem is, like, she knows how to do it, but I wouldn't have a clue. So that's what I need to keep her on. And if she ever leaves, I'll have to get someone else on who can do it as well.
Well, that's right. That's always the challenge, isn't it? Yeah. Look, I certainly can do a tiny little bit of Photoshop, but certainly not. That's I'll leave that to other people to do. We also use InDesign that. We put together our main kind of concept packages, A3 concept packages in InDesign too, which works well. Yeah.
Now, when did you put your first employee on?
That would have been just trying to think now. I reckon probably about 5 years ago. Yeah. So not too, maybe 6 years ago. I think around that kind of period, probably around 6 years ago. Yeah. And that was sort of a game changer really. And yeah, I really need to. It brought all that up to another level, which was fantastic. And I think it kind of got to the point where my own jobs, I was starting to, really bring in that sort of quality kind of work too. And so I really needed to have that edge for the presentation and just really having someone help me, because I was just obviously having a lot of work at the time. So yeah, that was good. And as I said before, I'm not too sure if I'll grow any larger. Yeah, I think I'm just sort of happy with the size of it now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to realize why you want to grow, whether it's so that you can help more people out with their gardens, or whether it makes any more money is debatable, because you're going to have more people have to pay for, and more computers, and something goes wrong, there's more mistakes, especially if you're not being able to see anything, and if you're looking over more people, then you're doing less work yourself as well. So there's not getting as much done there. So it's it doesn't really, if you have more people on, it doesn't mean you're making any more money.
That's right. Yeah. So I mean, I find at the moment, it works. System works really, really well for me, and I'll just continue down that path.
Yep. And like you say, you get more time to spend with your family. So what sort of things do you do outside of work?
Um, Probably being an Uber driver for my kids, really. A lot of driving kids around to activities, all that. Yeah, I mean, look, I've got two girls. They're 12 and 14. My wife has a sort of corporate full-time role, so she's busy with that. So really, we're sort of half looking after the kids. We're both really busy with that with the kids, and I guess just spending general kind of family time, and we also enjoy to travel as well. So try and get away where we can, whether it's in Australia or overseas. But other general, just enjoy my football, sport in general.
What team do you go for?
I go for the Pies. Yeah,
Oh, Jesus. Shouldn't have asked.
it's been a very good year.
That
Yeah.
was last season, that was. It's over now. It's all
You a Cats
no,
fan?
St Kilda.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, I've always felt sorry for all the Saints
Yeah,
support.
me too.
But anyhow, I'm sure your time will come. Yeah,
Well, I wouldn't be so sure.
yeah, yeah.
Is there a job you can think back of that sort of set you on the path to where you are now? Like that it was like a massive job. You thought that this is amazing. I can't believe we got this one, and it turned out how you hoped.
Yeah, great question. I think it would have to be my Fermanagh Road project, which is on my website. It's project in Camberwell. So that would have been finished probably I think about 7 or 8 years ago, around that kind of period. And that was one where it was a really fantastic heritage home that had a contemporary extension, amazing clients, and was able to just the front of that garden is it's almost a bit of a mini kind of botanical garden. So it's all just a heavy plant-based garden. Originally, the clients were going to look to do some quite a lot of lawn and that through the front garden, but I talked them around to just creating a beautiful garden through that whole setback. And there's a couple of established trees in the front and everything too. And that ended up being an absolute ripper. And the back being a contemporary garden is I typically do a lot of the rear gardens, just a bit more simpler and pared back to sort of go with that more simpler architecture, and then more period fronts. A little bit more sort of complex planting schemes, mixed planting, that sort of thing. So I think that project, which came up so well, and also the garden was the client was a really keen gardener. Lynn, she's just amazing how she looked after that garden herself, and she also had help with maintaining the garden. And actually, it's a garden now that have Cam look after. So they maintain that beautifully. So it was one that I think because of it was well constructed, well maintained, and then we had it in a few open garden events too. We had there was a couple of events that were on, so that was fantastic. And then obviously had it. I think that was probably the first garden where was able to have it really well photographed. It was in House and Garden. Derek Swalwell photographed it. Came up really well. So that I think that was a real ripper that really helped to gain other work from there. I would probably think that garden. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a garden I can think of. I remember seeing. Pretty sure Greener Visions were constructing it because you do it. They build a fair few of your gardens, but I remember watching it as it was getting constructed, and it's the one with the cobblestone driveway underground, like a basement, and then it's got the Boston Ivy arch over the top. And I was just looking back to see how long ago it was, and it was like 7 or 8 years ago that one was done. It feels like it wasn't that long ago. It was just
So that's Kuyon Garden. That was built by Matt from Inspired Landscapes. That was the first project I dealt with Matt constructed, and then since then he's built so many of my gardens sort of since then. Yeah, so that was really beautiful Victorian house, and the architects wanted to in the front setback have the driveway ramp. So that was going to start, quite close to the front. And so this whole void of the ramp was going to be within the front setback with this beautiful period house to the right. So, decided on that project to, as a way to kind of conceal, that look down into a dark hole essentially. Yeah, to build a beautiful arbor and have the Boston ivy grow on. And that was fantastic. The way that project ended up. That was obviously another great one. That would have probably came around that same time as Famana too. Yeah, so that was a ripper. Yeah.
Yeah. And then how did you come across Inspired on that one? Were they just working for the client, or did you employ them?
Builder. I think it was through the builder. It was either the client or the builder. And Matt just did a fantastic job. And then I didn't even know about his work. And then I think that's always the way with construction. It's one of those things where as a designer, obviously get a lot of construction people who contact me, and it's obviously have people that we currently recommend, but you can't exactly go recommending people who haven't built your work to clients. They're just going to look at you and just say, "What are you talking about? I don't want anyone who hasn't built your work before doing it." So it's one of those ones where to really build up those kind of contractors who do your work, it really is essentially where they've just managed to just been that job where it's been through the builder or the client, and they've built it really well. And then you've got that relationship kind of starts. Yeah, it's always a really tricky one, that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't, if you recommend someone and you've got no idea what their skills are like, and then it turns pear shaped, then that reflects directly back on you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. But I mean, if the clients have an option, they would want someone who regularly builds your work, does a fantastic job. So it is a hard one. Yeah.
And it's the same with maintenance crews. Like, do you recommend people to maintain them?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So we we regularly recommend AbCam, so who do a fantastic job. But it's a hard one. I mean, a lot of clients try and take on maintenance themselves in some respect, but very much, we try and push clients to have it maintained by professionals, or even just getting the main sort of work done, and they can, clients can do bits and pieces. That's absolutely fine. But spending so much money, investing that much into a garden, you really you don't want it to go pear shaped. So really wanted to maintain that asset. So that's a really important part of the business, and for us too, to have something that is able to grow and get better and better, and we can photograph, because we tend really not to photograph shoot projects. I try and wait at least 2 seasons for a garden. If we have to, we do it after 1 season, but really that second season, it goes leaps and bounds. And obviously, from there, we've done jobs who have gone back and reshot it again, at the 4-year mark, and it's at a totally different level. So to have a garden maintenance contractor there who's nurturing it, that's fantastic for us too. So we can.
And do you have much communication, like with Cam or any other maintenance people, about how you want the garden to grow?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, always get regular, messages, calls on then there just might just be little bits and pieces. How do you want this done? Or look, there's always that couple of percent in the garden too where things need to be changed. As much as you can be a good horticulturalist, you can't get everything right, and there is always going to be a couple of issues here and there where things need to be changed. So there's those issues that arise. Some potential new species or what have you that are put in, or things reworked, or that's the way something is pruned, etc. But I mean, Cam's I think got a good feel for how I think about those kind of things now. So which works well.
Yeah, that's the same as with construction people. You want to use the same ones for that reason, as well as maintenance. Then they can understand the way you want things done generally. And it makes sense about not getting every plant right, because you want to be innovative, and you don't want to use the exact same things all the time. So if you're going to be innovative, then things are going to have to change.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So when you started out, I imagine you were charging less than what you are now. But was there like a period of time where you thought you're not charging anywhere near enough, and you had to increase that? Was that the steep learning curve, or did you learn a bit about that before starting for yourself?
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, when you first get your first design job, I mean, that's right. You're almost happy to do it for free. You really are. I mean, looking back now, I actually not too long ago looked back at some of the prices, over 15 years ago and that, and it's kind of wow. But that's just part of it. That's just part of the evolution. And so, yeah, you start out, you're just, putting a small amount of money on it and just slowly building it up. And I think once your work kind of gets to a point and, yeah, you're really, really happy with product that you're kind of delivering and, you've got that great portfolio of work that sells itself. I think, yeah, once you start sort of hitting that, yeah, you obviously alter your fees accordingly, yeah. And yeah, I mean, it really is something where, I mean, you have an idea of what competitors and that putting out there, so you sort of factor that into the equation as well. And I think that's what it's about, And it's really about, I think you'll know when you're too expensive, you won't have too much work. So I think it is something that you've got to be really mindful and keep pushing too. So yeah, you do have to keep upping your prices. So that's, I mean, it doesn't happen every month or what have you. It might happen incrementally over a sort of period, but I think it's something you really have to look at. And if you're not getting the work, then obviously, you're probably, just gone that little bit too far. So
where does a lot of your work come from? Did you do any advertising, any paid advertising?
No, never done any paid advertising. So I think now, with the whole Instagram thing, when that started out, we sort of, started an account, and so that's just sort of gradually built up over time. I think with Instagram, it's not just direct from clients, but it's that whole network of architects, interior designers, builders, developers who follow. If you're working on a project with a certain architect and they tag you in and then suddenly they start following. So I think it's those contacts, where we get most of our work from. And yeah, I think most of our work really comes from architects. So I'd say that, 70% of our work would come through architects. The rest would just be, private clients who are just doing a garden renovation. We do a little bit of multi-res work, so do a little bit of that, and then a tiny little bit of commercial work, just the odd project here or there. Yeah, but look, we mainly focus on single res work, so that's where our main focus is, and that's 95% of our work. Yeah.
Yep. And you find you're knocking back any projects because you got too much on because it's just almost a one-man show?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I sort of learnt a few years ago. This is from an architect I ended up sort of using myself for my own house. But the way you take in inquiries and get back, I think originally, would just be, get an inquiry, go off to the house, visit them, whether there was a fee or not. There mightn't have been a fee back then, and then put out a fee proposal, and then I sort of learnt that it's probably better to get a bit more information off the client. So now we sort of, obviously projects come direct from architects are different, but those ones that come through that, hey, we're looking to redo our garden, the inquiry might be that comes through from a website or an email that comes to me. So we would now respond with, just give a bit of information about our process, how we work. And we send some links to some online portfolios too. So we have a few online portfolios that literally showcase all of our design work. So this is not via our own website, you can see. So they can jump on and see a huge amount of the work we've done over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, from small projects right through to large ones, and including some, examples of our sort of documentation work, how we do that, to give them an idea of, the kind of level that we are at in terms of what we produce. And then we try and give them that information and then get some information from them on projects. So, whether it's photos, any plans, a bit of a rough guide on a brief, potentially how much money sort of they're looking to spend on the project. And then we'll have a look at that. And then I might give them a call when that information comes in, chat through further. And it really is a good way to, just get rid of projects that just are not going to work. So we do that. Yeah, we do that all the time now, because ultimately now the way I see it is we just really want to take on projects that we can photograph. That's the way I look at it. So the only project I'll want to take on now is a job that I would, love that much that I'll want to photograph it. So I think that's the kind of thinking that sort of I have now with a new job. But yeah, so certainly there are some jobs that come in that may not be a great fit for us, and I'll certainly then give them some information of, where else might be good to look, whether it's, Landscaping Victoria or some other websites to, keep them on their way. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I love that you're designing jobs that you're going to enjoy doing. So rather than just designing jobs because you have to make money and just turn one over, you're actually going to have a passion for it, so you'll enjoy it, and then that's going to bring out a better result as well. So the client's happier, and it just keeps going in the right direction.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, look, so when you're starting out, you'll take on anything. I mean, Of course, I was the same too, and some of the jobs we took on, we go all across Melbourne, everywhere. And now, just a little bit more selective. Look, just can be, I guess. That's the only reason. Sometimes I feel sorry for people when they call up and really. But look, you have to look after yourself at the end of the day, and you just have to make those kind of decisions.
Yeah. Do you keep track of how many hours you spend on each project?
Not really, Joel. Yeah, not really. Yeah, I think. Look, I think just due to the size of the business and everything, you know what I mean? I don't know. I think if I put time into that, it'd be time off other kind of stuff. If I was sort of larger kind of business, I can see, value in doing that, I think. But yeah, for me, no. But obviously I have in the back of my mind how much time things are taking that. But yeah, I've kind of learned. The other thing too, over sort of learning growth kind of period too, is how to your fee proposals that go out, trying to portray them so that they look after me and not just the client. So I think when I first started out, things would be open ended in design, and that's the way I kind of thought about it. That like you'd go in there, you give them as many drawings as sort of needed, and that was it. Make as many changes as possible, but it doesn't have to be like that. And so now, obviously I'm not like that, and it's very kind of set in what the client gets, in terms of how many elevations, things like that. So it's also managed that way, sort of in my favour as a business. So I think that really sort of helped a few years ago doing that as well. So in terms of the product that's done, most projects are fairly similar kind of time input for each, various size of projects. I would say because of that, yeah.
And have you used a mentor since you've been running the business?
No, yeah.
And not has anyone ever reached out to you for advice or anything in that sort of capacity?
Yeah, look, I get the occasional call from people who might be, looking to go in the industry, and certainly, obviously had a number of chats with different people in that regard. So more than happy to have those chats. But it's something that I've never really gone out to sort of seek or anything like that. Probably too lazy to be honest. But it's something I think I've just ended up just sort of learning how to do things sort of on my own. But I mean, look, there are some other landscape designers that I chat to, so certainly get some information via that way on you might have a question on how to approach something. So that's fantastic as well. Yeah.
And how's it been with the ever-changing red tape that goes into the construction of designs? Like, do you take care of any permits or anything like that, or town planning?
Yeah, so generally speaking, no. So we won't do any, we'll provide the drawings for the planning permits or building permit drawings, etc. But not undertake getting those permits as such. So we've got some people we recommend who can look after that for the clients, or generally speaking, when you work with an architect, they'll just end up doing it themselves. So that's obviously a massive time-consuming thing too. So but certainly, I mean, look, the whole regulations thing. It's certainly as a designer, it's something you have to be so closely across. So obviously make sure my understanding on everything is rules and regs change. I'm across it, especially when designing pools, as So being across that code and obviously other areas as well. So
Yeah, there's a post I saw on your Instagram that someone like you did a moat around a pool so that you didn't need a pull fence around it. And
Yeah.
so I saw that in New South Wales they won't allow that. They won't allow the pool wall to be used as the pool fence. So it's
That's right.
it's crazy the amount of different things. It's like, let alone all the rules there are, but then different councils and states all got different interpretations of those rules as well.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, and that's obviously, look, we don't do that much interstate work, but when we do, yeah, that's obviously one thing. You do need to do that little bit of research too on those particular areas.
What would be the biggest design that you've done? Like, is there one, or would they be? I think so that Flinders one, that was like 8 hectares, wasn't it? Or 8?
There was about 5 or 6 acres of garden around the house, so I did that for the original designer, sorry, the original owner, and then that was then bought out by a new owner, and then we sort of expanded that to a whole primary production area. So we put in 5 acres of grapes. We put in glass houses for growing all their vegetables. We put in an orchard. We put in truffle inoculated oaks, all sorts of things that aided them for their primary production on the land, and that took it to a whole nother level. But yeah, that particular project was sort of 5 to 6 acres of garden through there. Probably our biggest project we're working on at the moment down on the peninsula, and that's around that kind of 6 acres of garden mark around a more broader 300-acre property, and that's going to be about a couple of year construction on that garden. So yeah, that's a super exciting project for us that we're currently working on now.
So how do you quote a project like that, or do you just sort of give an hourly rate and an estimate on how much it might be?
Yes, we quoted it. Yep, we quoted it. And again, that was just, you've got to be very careful with these rural projects, because it's, where is the boundary? It's very easy with a straight 800 square metre block. You know where your title boundary is, and you design, whether everything externally within that space, if that's what the client wanted. But when you're talking rural, it's where's the boundary? What am I designing? So we're really careful about that and understanding from the client initially, and then those particular areas of where we have an idea of where that boundary is, we'll go into the fee proposal. So that's our area that we're looking at, and with their brief too, because it really depends what they want and how much time input goes into it. Obviously, where the fee goes. So understanding that's really important. But yeah, that particular project was done at a set fee, and it's since grown from there. So it's gone. We're now doing whole entrance way, and it's just continued on. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's a good thing about having as much communication as you can about what's included in your price, so that then if there are other things that they thought, like, you don't want them to think that they were getting something that they're not, and then it makes it awkward, or someone's going to lose money or time.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's right. So all that stuff, being in your fee proposal, and just being super upfront with clients about it too, and explaining to them, that if we need to get a land survey done, that's a disbursement, and it's in the fee proposal. All those sorts of things really, really important. The client's aware of, but obviously have it in there to help you and your business. Yep.
Where can you see the business being in 5 years, do you think? Would it be pretty much the same as what you're doing now, just doing some amazing projects, or something different?
Yeah, look, I think so. I think similar. I think similar to where we are, and probably, maybe some bigger projects. I love working on rural projects around Victoria. So we've got a lot of projects on the go around, from Ballarat to Shepparton, up near Yea, rural projects around the peninsula and that. So I love working on those, but obviously you've got to be careful because the time inputs too with travel and everything. So it can be time zappers, the larger projects for sure. So, but look, it is that's a real passion, and particularly projects down the peninsula as well. So we're doing a lot down there. We're working on a lot more gardens recently with Indigenous and native planting. So we're doing quite a few of them at the moment, and that's certainly been a real learning aspect of mine just over the last few years. So been having a lot of fun with that, and so potentially some more of those too. Because I think the future is all around that, with climate change and everything, and where that's heading. So Loving that at the moment. I mean, yeah, obviously mainly native and indigenous, but also, in those kind of gardens, obviously there's a selection of plants too that we use that are exotics, but we, obviously tend to select them that plants that are grown in similar climates to Australia, whether that's South Africa or California or Mediterranean, Northern Africa, New Zealand. So that's really, really important. So yeah, look, I think, yeah, doing similar projects and possibly, yeah, maybe the projects are going to be more in that space.
Yeah, I've recently working for a couple of different designers, been exposed to more natives and indigenous plants than what I have in the past. And there's just so many amazing plants that I had no idea of because they're not mass produced and available like all the exotics and the other, standard natives are. Yeah. So there's so many plants that are just an amazing plant to use for certain situations, but nobody really knows about it. It's always keeps a passion going when you learn new things like that.
That's exactly right. So yeah, continuing to learn about, our native plants it's just a great thing. And I think it's such a change in the last 5 years in landscape design, particularly in urban landscape design as well, where that's headed. That, you can throw a Coria alba amongst some of the other exotic planting and it's okay. And perhaps that's a better plant than, buxus and that to use in an urban environment. It's fine. You know what I mean? It works. It looks fantastic. So yeah, I think there's been a huge change in the last few years about that, and I think it's really flowing through, and I think it's only just going to grow and grow. Yeah.
Yeah. And last question for you, Ben, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
I think, Matt from Inspired Landscapes would be fantastic to chat to. Matt's, really interesting landscaper, does a lot of, residential work, commercial, and just the other day I actually found out he built a lot of the Cranbourne Botanic Garden.
All right.
Which I didn't even know that. So yeah, he does a broad kind of range of projects. He's fantastic, really knowledgeable guy. Yeah, who else? Probably like to hear from. Have you tried Sam Cox?
Yeah, I did. I spoke to him. I reckon it might have been this. I messaged him last year. Spoke to him at the start of this year, but I think he had all these guys off sick at the start when we were going to going on. So and then I just forgot. So, but yeah, I've spoken to him on the phone as well. But yeah, I'd be awesome to have him on.
I'd love to hear Sam's story. He does amazing native gardens. So probably those two guys.
Awesome, great recommendations, and thank you so much for coming on. I've absolutely loved your work, so it was awesome to hear from you, and thanks for sharing your story.
No problems at all. Thanks for having me, Joel.